Wears Prada 2, a sequel to the classic hit that was released almost 20 years ago. And we get to see the return of Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep as they return to the world of fashion in New York City. And we get to see sort of the classic things that we enjoyed from the original film, the New York City, the glamorous slash closed off environment of the fashion world, the clothes, the music, the celebrity nature of this world. And this film hits all the beats. All the stuff you loved about the original is gonna be in this film as well. What this movie does very well, like most legacy sequels, is it gets all the hits that we're all looking to see. We get to see New York City, the fashion industry, the cool clothes, the great memorable lines from iconic characters that we loved as kids growing up. And it really builds off the nostalgia from the first film. And it hits all the beats that we're all waiting to see. And I think that's the best part of the film. If you love the original Devil Wears Prada, you're going to love this movie. But if you're expecting to see new characters in a new world, in a movie that's going to take risks in different parts of the movie, this isn't it. We don't necessarily get to see a different side of this world. We kind of see what we saw in the first film. Something that a lot of these legacy sequels give is they don't necessarily build on the world, they just kind of hit the beats that we want to see. And that's fine. Some people want to see that, some people don't. Really well done was the capturing of New York City and the environment the characters kind of operate in. That to me is what I wanted to see the most, is I wanted to feel like I was at these fashion shows, and I wanted to feel like what was it like to work in Runway magazine, like to work for this kind of person and these kind of to have work in these different types of environments. And we get to see that in this film as well. Much like in the first film, you immediately feel thrown into this world, and I really like that they were able to capture that tone again. You have great performances in this movie. Meryl Streep plays, of course, Miranda Priestley, who is obviously loosely based off of Anna Wintour, the current boss at Vogue magazine. And she is great, like she was great in the first film. You get the great one-liners. You see how she's still ruthless, but this time she has to, like Anne Hathaway's character in the first film, Annie, she has to operate in a new environment, in a new world, where she has to kind of learn how to follow the rules of 2026 and not the rules of 2006. And I think that was something they had to address, is that this character had to evolve into the new world, to the new tech and the new generation and the new environment that she has to operate in. And we see all the characters throughout this entire film, particularly the main characters, they are all evolving and they've all changed significantly since the first film. And I think they chose to have this story really focus on the four main characters. We don't necessarily see that many new characters introduced in this film like we see in other legacy sequels. They tend to just really want to show you how much these characters have evolved and what is their journey look like 20 years later. And another, of course, Anne Hathaway is charming and likable, and she's not an aloof character, but she has that balance to show like innocence, and also that she's not like a pushover, right? Like in the first film, this is someone who's grown significantly and someone who can hold her own, and also someone who's very smart and intelligent. They don't make the character, the character is very complex and very self-aware. Another aspect I thought was very interesting is if you watch the first Devil Wears Prada film, you've seen that original film, the biggest criticism of that first movie was a lot of people didn't like the boyfriend. They thought he was kind of like the villain of the original film. And I thought that was a very interesting aspect, especially rewatching it recently. I can kind of see why people didn't like his character. This film, they kind of recast the boyfriend and they take a completely different approach. And I thought that was very interesting that they chose to have the boyfriend be a little more supportive but not too overbearing like you saw in the first movie. That's an example, I think, of what's the ultimate flaw of this movie is, in a lot of these legacy reboots, is they kind of lean towards fan service rather than kind of approaching some of the issues that Annie has, right? Why is she kind of cares more about her career and a little less about her relationships. They don't necessarily focus on that. They kind of give what fans want. And that happens throughout the entire movie, where they kind of take the easy route. My favorite character of the first film was Emily Charlton, played by Emily Blunt. She is sort of a sarcastic, cruel, and also very charming and likable person who works at Runway but no longer works there. And you get to see her be in this film, very different from that first film. She's more sort of more likable and more, you kind of rooting for her too. At least I was. And another aspect of this movie that I really enjoyed was you get to see there's some great cameos throughout the entire film. Won't spoil it, but it's not too. It's a movie like you would expect to have cameos in because it is set. It is set in a glamorous slash fashion world, so you get to see those cool cameos, and I thought they were all very well done. And overall, I thought this movie worked from sort of beginning to end. It hits all the beats that you want to see. You do see a lack of introduction of newer characters, which I think this film could have used. And the best part about this movie is sort of the supporting cast of new characters that are in this world that are very funny, but that have very brief scenes. And I think when you do a legacy sequel, you got to introduce some new characters. They did not do that in this movie, and I think that in there that you need. When you're doing a sequel, you have to expand the world that you're in. Every great sequel has done that. Batman, Dark Knight introduced new characters. Empire Strikes Back, Top Gun Maverick introduced new characters. The film did not do that. I would love to see more from the supporting cast. We didn't see that, but that's their decision. But that to me is the biggest flaw in the entire film, and it does feel a little bit like a marketing scheme where they're trying to market the fashion world as this cool, hip thing, and it does feel a little like they're trying to sell me something rather than tell a story. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm gonna give this movie a 7.7 out of 10. Solid sequel film that lives up to what if you like the original, you like this. If you like this review, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. Thanks, guys.